I use the body as a tool to help you connect to your subconscious mind. Mm-hmm. And then different kinds of imagery that kind of connect the body and the mind. People find kind of the core wounds underneath the things that they're having difficulty with. So if you even think about either, something that makes you anxious or something that, when you were grabbing that bag of chips or cookies that you didn't want, or, a drink, what was that moment like? Can you notice where you feel that in your body? And I've discovered that when you connect to the tension in your body from that moment, just thinking about that moment, you're able to instantly go back to a particular scene or pattern from your childhood that you still haven't healed.
Welcome to the Daily Soul Bytes Show. I'm your host, Bola Abimbola, and this is the show where we interview guest authors and coaches and entrepreneurs in the field of spirituality, psychology, leadership, or the expansion of collective consciousness. And today I have a very special guest, Mahesh Grossman. And I'll read a bit about Mahesh before we start. Mahesh Grossman is a clinical certified hypnotherapist on a mission to let the world know how valuable hypnosis is for pain relief, for both physical and emotional pain, as well as how it makes a huge difference for many medical conditions. Wonderful. Welcome to the show, Mahesh.
Thanks for having me.
I would love to know, Mahesh, how you fell in love with hypnosis, because hypnosis is something that I think we probably do not know we already do. A lot of us, we already do a lot of hypnosis in our day-to-day using our imagination. And I would love to know how you fell in love with this really powerful technique of reality creation and reality transformation. How did you fall in love with it?
Well, here's the thing. It started with, I consider myself a somatic hypnotherapist, which means I use the body as a tool to help you connect to your subconscious mind. And what I fell in love with at first was more the somatic side, the connecting to your body side. Somatic just means connecting to your body. And through therapy and then when I wanted to practice some of the things I had learned, because I studied with my therapist was teaching people how to do what's called psychodrama, which is just acting out these moments from childhood that you haven't healed. And I was really good at it because he'd been my therapist for at least 300 hours. So even though I was new to the class, I had 300 hours of private lessons without being told how to do it, but experiencing it for myself. So I found hypnosis because when I looked at the laws in California, I discovered the only one who can work with the subconscious besides therapists are hypnotists. And so that's what made me go take a hypnosis class or a certification class. And then I discovered that all the things that I could do ordinarily worked even more, because there were some things they were teaching that I already knew how to do, but you could go to a deeper place by doing some of the hypnosis kinds of things. So that's how I fell in love with it. And also because the the profound changes people can experience instantaneously. And what makes me there's one thing I wish I could just give away to the entire world, because I have this process where in just 3 minutes you can find out why you're triggered in the first place. When you catch yourself being really mad or really just desperate for a drink or for chips or whatever.
Tell us the process.
Yeah.
But just give us a kind of a step by step.
And you know what? If you're listening to this, you can do it along with me. So the first step is to just think about something that triggered you or made you anxious or whatever. And you don't even have to do that. You can just notice the next step is to notice where you feel tension in your body. And with clients that, after a few weeks, sometimes they prefer to just go open-ended, and you can just notice where you feel tension in your body. And then let's say it's in your chest, and it can be a bunch of different places. It could be anywhere, but if you have a choice, you can go from you choose your torso, right? Your chest or your midriff or your belly, because those are kind of powerful emotional centers, and we'll probably have if you have a choice, that's probably where the deepest work will go. And if it's not there, then it works just as well. And then I just ask people to notice how old they were the first time they had this sensation. And, some people get it right away. And then most people, though, I say, well, were you 10 or under, or were you 11 or older? And I ask them to give the answer to me, not from an intellectual place, but from an aha moment place, from a place of just knowing it. And then let's say it's, and if you're doing this along at home, if it's, the next step is to split the difference. So if it was 10 or under, you could go, was it 0 to 5 or 6 to 10? Mm-hmm. And if it's, 11 or older, then, was it 11 to 20 or 21 and older? And then you just, depending on how old you are, you can just do 20s, 30s, 40s, or if it's older. But most people, it's childhood stuff. But eventually you'll get to an age, let's say it's 7 and 9, but you're not 100% sure where. You can guess 8, right? 8 is going to be a pretty good fit, even if and you may get more information afterwards anyway. So then all you do next is you find out where you were. You're upset, and you know that you're 8, were you at home or at school, or someplace else. And then, where were you at home or school? At school, you could be the lunchroom, you could be on the field, you could be in a classroom. At home, what room were you in? And who were you upset with? And even if you're alone, if you're, re-feeling this feeling, it's because you're upset about someone or something. And if it's a group of people, just pick one, to the one you're the most uncomfortable with, and you'll have a sense of what happened. And it doesn't have to be, and the way I work the story, what happens doesn't matter. It's not about the story, it's about what you're living with right now. Yeah, because you're living with this tension, and also some beliefs, in which I'll show you how that works in a second. So the thing I have people do is fill in the blanks with a simple sentence. Blank, it really hurt me when you blank, or made me mad, or made me scared, depending on what your emotion is. But it's blank, you really blank when I blank. Let's say mom was being super critical. I try to use the things that trigger people the least as the examples. So, Mom, it really hurt me when you criticized me all the time. And when you say that and you picture your mother, 100% of the time, this is what happens. She makes an excuse. Or whoever it is, your dad or your gym coach or the nuns at Catholic school, they make an excuse. But here's the funny thing about it. Let's say you're 40, and this has happened when you were 8 years old. That mother, even if she's still alive, doesn't exist anymore. Mm-hmm. That was 32 years ago. Mm-hmm. So who is she really? Well, she's you. She's a part of you. Mm-hmm. That etched in stone, whatever her message is, So when you say, Mom, it really hurt me when you criticized me all the time, she might say, well, you needed that. Otherwise, you were not going to, whatever. Or that's how my mother treated me. Mm-hmm. None of which is satisfying, right? You don't, what you want to hear is, I'm sorry, I love you, you're a great kid, I never should have done that. But what you're hearing is this excuse. And this is living inside you, running you. And this is why you're reaching for that drink, or why you're anxious, or, whatever it is that you're doing, or why you're really mad at, because somebody said or did something to you. It's not about them. It's about this piece of work. So once you do that, there's a longer process where we get the mom to eventually say, I love you, you're a great kid, I never should have done that, and I'm sorry. And that brings this tremendous amount of peace, and the tension you feel, let's say it was in your chest, releases a significant portion.
Mm.
And but then you go back and you check that feeling in your chest and say, well, is it the same? Is it worse, or is it better? And if it's better but not all the way, then you go back and say, well, how old was I the first time I had whatever this sensation is? And you keep going and address these old wounds that are running you and making your life harder. And eventually you get to a point where you're feeling peace in that area. That doesn't mean there's not more, but suddenly this is a way to get rid of anxiety. This is a way to get rid of all kinds of trauma and all kinds of behavior, any behavior that's happening in your life that either you don't want to do, or you don't want to choose the same kind of unavailable people, emotionally unavailable people, or you don't want to people please. There's another technique that I like to use when I'm not doing the full technique, which is to just get rid of that tension in your body. So, and what I ask people to do is I just have them imagine a fire hose attached to that spot in their body. And then I have them picture going to the edge of the Grand Canyon or whatever place, wherever there's a big hole where you live that you can fill up. And all you're going to do is let the water come out of the hose and into the Grand Canyon. And that will release a tremendous amount of tension. This is a great thing for anxiety as also.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you, Mahesh. I love the way you combine thoughts, the reframing of thoughts with the release of tension in the body. Because with every emotion comes from a thought. There is no emotion without a thought. Those beliefs also, as we are releasing the emotions in the body and integrating the polarity, we're also learning to reframe those beliefs. And I love the way, because I also use it in my work. Going back in time as an observer, or in this case, as a participant, because we can go in the past as a participant or as an observer. And you're actually looking at that emotion, looking at that scene, and the goal is to end up feeling safe. Right. Because there is a part of us that feels unsafe. That is the trigger. The trigger is a reflection from that belief within us. There's someone that said you either believe you're in a universe that is safe or a universe that is unsafe. And it makes a big difference how we feel when we hold beliefs of safety. So I love the way you combine that. I would love to know a bit about your background growing up, how you came to understand the body has a lot of polarity. Thousands of, we have 3 billion cells, within us. And the power that those cells have, the cells are rejuvenating every day, new cells every day. I always say, yes, I'm getting old, but the oldest cell within me is probably 7 years old. It's interesting how we are conditioned with a set of beliefs. And then as we get older, we come to realize some of those beliefs are not ours. This doesn't belong to me. Oh, that's not mine. Oh, I don't want that.
What's really interesting is it's not just beliefs. It's actual, there's a whole side of epigenetic psychology where they've done science now, that are studies that say you can inherit the trauma that your grandparents didn't process.
Yeah,
through the sperm and the egg. Yeah. And when I work with people, I'd say about 18% of the time, the stuff they're carrying doesn't belong to them. Part of it's through, the sperm and the egg, but part of it's just osmosis. You're around your parents and you're carrying and your siblings, and you're carrying their stuff. You don't realize it. I had an anger management client who, the way we got rid of his anger was he was a couple years old, eating at a high chair, and his father just screamed at him. And the anger penetrated his entire system. And when we got rid of the anger from his father's anger, which I don't even use any of the normal techniques, for that, because you can't work on somebody else's stuff. His father, when he was 2, doesn't exist anymore. But still, the material doesn't belong to you. So I do a thing where I have a dad hold a giant red magnet with silver tips and lets the magnet pull stuff out of the sun or whoever, depending on the people involved. People get really clear imagery from this. A lot of times it's more standard. It's like magnetic filings, which is, normal people. I don't know if you have this in London, but growing up, there's this man with a face and some magnetic filings, and you could use a little magnet pencil and move the filings around with a beard. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you guys had that or not, but
I've seen it.
Yeah, it was very common in the U.S. So a lot of people see magnetic filings like that. Some people see energy, and sometimes it's really specific. A woman whose mother was just tremendously critical had daggers came out of her mother onto the magnet. And so it's beyond imagination. It's this other thing. It's this.
Oh yeah.
It's this moving energy.
Yes.
And so we get, and so some of what we feel doesn't belong to us, and that's easier in some ways. Easier. Sometimes it's easier to get rid of. Sometimes we have a belief that we need to hold on to this, that it's not okay. There's some younger part of us that stayed safe by carrying this stuff for other, parents typically, or grandparents. So sometimes
I think so. I think there's some beliefs that we needed to hold to survive, and there's some emotions that came out of those beliefs that helped us to survive. We had to repress and suppress some memories in order to thrive, because otherwise we would have been too overwhelmed to move forward. And then a time comes when, if we do not release those emotions and integrate them, we cannot go forward any longer. So I think it's a very dynamic process, and I do appreciate the importance of understanding the power of the mind over the body, mind over matter. I don't know if you know of Tony Robbins. He runs a number of walking on hot coals.
Oh, Tony Robbins, yeah.
Yes. He was one of my very early coaches, and he used to do this hot coal walks. So you walk on hot coal barefoot, and it's with you repeating the phrase "cool moss, cool moss." So you're walking on very hot coal, but burning coal. This is real life, not on Zoom. You're walking on hot coal, but you're saying the words repeatedly, cool moss. So your mind believes you're walking on cool moss, so you don't get burnt. You walk the strip of hot coal. And that for me was a very practical way of understanding mind over matter. Mm-hmm. Mind over matter, the way the mind can hold certain thoughts and the body will just follow. And I wanted to ask you a bit more about some of the techniques that you use, because I love the way you explained, the way you take your clients back into the past as their inner child. So healing that inner childhood experience.
For me, it's an integrated process. I call it my 5-step Defy Trauma process. And I've already showed you the first step is to reconnect to your body, and the second step is to release whatever leftover emotion is. The third step is to remove any obstacles, because sometimes we want to hold on to, we're afraid to go there. Just even saying, to your older brother, Harry, it really made me mad when you whatever. May not even feel safe enough to do that. It may not feel safe to hold your anger. So then we have to go work with younger parts of yourself that I like to have them show up in a library. So you go to a bookshelf, you pull off the books, and behind the aisle, and you make a little window through the bookshelf, and between the aisles you get to see this younger part. I've had people have past lives there. Relatives there, like somebody, a 20-year-old woman had a 50-year-old version of herself, and I said, well, we don't do that. A 50-year-old version of you can't be running you right now. And it turned out to be this 50-year-old woman that was carrying stuff from this 50-year-old woman that was an ancestor. But then we work with these parts and we get them to say, hey, are you tired of the job of making me afraid of my anger? And most of the time they'll say yes. And then you ask them, well, are you willing to retire from that job? And sometimes they'll say yes, and sometimes they'll say no. And then you have to, I feel like my background as a telemarketer made me really qualified
telemarketer.
for working these projects, because you're constantly overcoming objections and coming up with new ways of saying the same thing in new scenarios, right? You don't want this newspaper? Well, it's, do your kids have high school sports? Don't you want to read about your kid when he's in the newspaper?
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? How the careers we have only are stepping stones. They build us up to the next one, and everything. Nothing is wasted. True. Yeah, nothing is wasted.
Yeah, and my fourth step is the part where you say, "Mom, it really hurt me when you criticized me," and that is how you handle the beliefs. The beliefs naturally fall away. Yeah. If you can get that inner part to just that mom that's etched in stone, and sometimes the mom is so etched in stone that we can't even work with her. So then I borrow from psychodrama. Psychodrama is this method where you do this work where you talk to different aspects of yourself, or you watch people be, like if your mom and dad ignored you when you were 2 years old, you can watch people do that, and you can have the feeling and the validation and the understanding. Or you can say, "Mom, it really hurt me when you criticized me all the time," and you have somebody playing the part of your mom. And I realized, well, you don't have to go. That's a lot of work to get a group of people who want to do that. You can do it in your mind, and you don't even have to use your real name.
Yes.
You can replace your mom with somebody you know and love, or a character, or a celebrity. So, you can have your mom can be played by Taylor Swift or Phoebe from Friends, or your dad could be played by Mr. Rogers. And you can then say to them the same things, and they'll usually respond with, "I'm sorry, I love you, you're a great kid, I never should have done that." Sometimes it's so etched in stone that I have to use some of the other techniques where we do things like have them put a ball of light, have your grandparent whose love they were trying to get by being so critical. Your mom's mom, let's say, is trying to get her mom's approval by criticizing you all the time. And you get mom to put a ball of light either into your mother or into, Phoebe from Friends. And then she's finally going to say those things. But the fifth step, and this is where I eventually use the NLP anchor stuff, is to refill yourself with something you squashed. This comes from shamanic practice called the soul retrieval. Oh, yeah. I've always found that soul retrieval is just so poorly named, because it makes it sound like this really big deal where you're retrieving some part of your soul that was stolen from you or that you gave away. Or what it really is, you've squashed some part of yourself in order to feel safe. And it's so much simpler to get that, to unsquash that part. So I take people again to the library, and there's a beautifully wrapped present, and they open a present, and eventually there's a present that most of the time on the first try, sometimes it's not something to keep, it's something to get rid of, but they get something that represents something that they've squashed inside themselves. So I had a bald man who got the hairbrush he used to use when he had a mullet, and before he was going out as a teenager with his long-haired mullet, and he would use it, and it represented his joy. And then you bring these things inside of you. The most powerful thing I ever experienced with someone during this part was I had a woman who was depressed for 20 years. Her husband had been murdered at work by someone they both knew, and she'd been depressed for 20 years. And so what she got was rubies, and the rubies represented love, red, the color of the heart. And we asked the object what it represents. And And I asked her to ask the rubies, what do you need from me? Do you need anything from me in order to stay with me forever? And they said, yes, you need to allow love in. And I said, are you willing to do that? And she said, no. And I love no. No is a great answer because no means there's a piece of work. So then we did the work. It only took 5 or 10 minutes. And she got to a point where she said, yes, I'm willing to allow love in. And at that point, I asked her to put the rubies inside herself and spread all the energy around. I mean, the rubies, the feeling that she got from the rubies, and the rubies. When people do this work, when they put the rubies in, or whatever the present is, they have a tangible feeling inside them. Oh. And so we take that feeling and have them spread it all the way through their body, and they're feeling this tremendous peace. And I asked them, and the NLP part is the anchor part is like, well, what word would you use to describe that feeling? And, sometimes they're, peace and all these other things. Sometimes it's spongy. I love when somebody has something kind of original and different from what I usually hear. And then I had, they put their hand where they feel the spongiest, whatever their word is. And anytime they say that word and put their hand there, they can feel it again. And that's what the NLP portion of it is. But what's really interesting about that is I used to take them out of it. I found that the best way to get someone not to be in a positive space is to ask them to think about something they judge about themselves or someone else. And it took them right out of 90%. Some people, the feeling was so strong that it didn't even work. But then I'd ask them to put their hand in the same place and say their word, and they would feel that way again. So that's kind of what the anchoring portion is. Now, the upshot with this woman, after she was willing to allow love in, and we did this piece of work where she put the rubies in, she came back for her next session, and she had worn sweatpants and a sweat hoodie, gray sweat hoodie and gray sweatpants, and every single session, which pretty much meant that's what she wore every single day.
The uniform, yeah.
Yeah, that was her uniform to being depressed. She's wearing this beautiful pink top and these brand new blue jeans. And I said to her, and she said to me, I had dinner with my son. He didn't recognize me. He hadn't seen her not depressed. So he was 29. He was 9 years old when his dad was murdered. He hadn't seen his mother normal and relatively happy for 20 years, so he didn't recognize her. I had no idea at the end of the session that this is what had transpired, but this is how this fifth step, this is how this present stuff can work. And, it wasn't just present, it was removing the obstacles to allowing love in.
Yeah. Yeah. And what are the biggest struggles that you have found that your clients have in this allowing? Because allowing is so powerful. It's such a powerful thing to be able to be aware of what are the blocks, what are my limits. And I think some of the work that we do is to support people to find this, because it's sometimes hidden deep down in the unconscious, not even in the conscious, in the unconscious. And so you have clients working with you. What are the things that you have found are the biggest challenges that they hold?
Well, the answer, I guess, from within the work is there's some younger part of them that didn't feel safe allowing whatever it is that we're trying to allow, or they got a message that, I have to protect mom from my anger, let's say. Yeah, or, in my case, I have to protect my mom and my dad from me being successful. That was one of my big blocks, that if I did well, I would be abandoned. So it's so personal, right? The work is so personal. So, the big ones are, it's not okay to feel whatever you're feeling. I'm going to be abandoned if I do such and such. What else? It's not safe. I'm going to, if I do, if I do whatever it is, it's not safe for me to do that. So you have to address that younger part, and you have to say, hey, are you tired of the job of keeping me feeling unsafe?
Yeah. See, there's
And then,
self-awareness, and then there is the work. First, you have to know what the issues are. Once you know what your issues are, what beliefs am I holding around? Because negative beliefs self-perpetuate. They actually have an energy to them. This is what we sometimes don't realize about negative beliefs, that they have an energy to them and they have a force behind them. They perpetuate themselves to stay alive almost. So they will stand against any attempt to erase or to remove them from your mind. And I think we sometimes don't realize how powerful our negative beliefs are.
See, that's why it's fun to work with them as actual people.
As well, yes, that's how powerful they are. Yes.
Because then you can address them, and they can talk back. Because yes, it's very hard. There are times where they're really, 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 riveted against the change.
What's the title of the book again?
The book is The 1 Minute Anxiety Solution. The freebie is the Emotional First Aid Kit. And they're all at anxiety123.com. I wanted to make it as easy as 123 for people to remember anxiety123.com, because a lot of people watch you and listen to you on, the treadmill or in the car and don't ever look at your show notes. So it's anxiety123, as easy as 123. And I also, to learn my full process, my 5-step, what I call Defy Trauma process, which I elicited, expressed here. There's a program called Defy Trauma, and you'll find a link to Defy Trauma. And this is my full, except for when I color outside the lines, because not everything can be standardized, but primarily this is the main way I work with people in every session. I've had people have experiences that I was kind of jealous that they had the experience with my course and my videos and not me.
No, because we will work with people in different ways. It's not always that thing.
So not everybody's ready to go do the work to find the original reason they have anxiety in the first place. Sometimes you just need something that works really well. So that fire hose technique was one of the techniques.
Okay.
Sometimes it's my most popular one on TikTok and Instagram is what I call eye ridge rubbing. And you simply, and I'll describe it, I'll do it and I'll describe it in case people just listen to you. But you reach just above your eye, there's a bone, and you just make the letter C or reverse C on one side. And then you go back and you do it on the other, around the top of your eye down to below your eye. And you just go back and forth 3 times or more if you want to do more. And it creates this profound energetic shift.
It is. I think it's an energy shift, yes.
Yeah, but I don't know what it is.
Yeah, I think it's because we have all these energy meridians at different points in our body. And it's really about how we encourage the flow of energy across a particular pathway. And it's all about releasing tension. So I can get that. And
then there's breathing techniques. There's sometimes for the fear of anxiety. One of the things there's something called anticipatory anxiety, where even if you've overcome the anxiety in the past, you're still afraid you're going to be anxious again. And so one of the simple techniques I used, somebody was appearing on national TV, and he'd gotten over the root cause of his anxiety, but he was still getting this dry throat, hard time talking anxiety. I said, well, let's just try this. It's a simple verbal thing where you just say what you're thinking, and I'm scared I'm going to screw up, and then you rhyme with it. You just want to change the space. You use more creative parts of the mind. So I'm afraid I'm going to screw up, do up, chew up, view up. I mean, I chose a bad word to rhyme today. I'm afraid I'm going to screw up today, day, ray, shay, lay, flay. And it doesn't have to be real words at all. But that's one of the kind of cool techniques for just anticipatory anxiety. It's the part of, anxiety is a pattern match. to when something else happened. I call it a pattern matching allergy. So your body responds illogically and thinks something's going to kill it when you're totally safe. So if you were a cave person and you were attacked by a woolly mammoth near yellow grass, but narrowly escaped, the color yellow could trigger anxiety for you. So your grandma invites you over for delicious bison dinner, and you go to the back of her cave, and she's done these beautiful cave paintings, including a yellow horse. You see that color yellow, and your body and your cave brain thinks you're going to be attacked and you're going to die. So it wants you to either freeze or flee or fight. So your body, the anxiety symptoms are all fighting or freezing or getting you ready. So you get nauseous, or you sweat, or your heart rate races. All the different things that happen from anxiety are coming from a sloppy pattern match that your brain is making from one situation to the next. So the key to getting over anxiety, or to at least lowering anxiety, two keys. One is to just lower your anxiety enough that you can keep going. And that's where these techniques come in, because they all, with 57 different ways that take a minute, you'll find some that you like a lot. And you can use those, and it will lower your anxiety. The other thing that has to happen is you have to do whatever you're anxious about, because you have to teach your brain that you're safe. If you don't, if you stop doing whatever it was that you wanted to do, and I can't even think of examples right now. Normally, the different things that, fear of heights or whatever it is, fear of driving over the bridge, your brain is going to think it saved your life. You didn't drive over that bridge, and now your brain thinks, oh, good, I should do more of that. Should keep doing it. I should do more. And so
it's okay. I think it's really key, the all these tools that you have in this book, because at the end of the day, it's really important for us to begin to see that things shift. Our patterns can shift. They're not set in stone. And this begins to give a sense of power to us, because there's that learned helplessness that we all have. We all start off feeling we're very helpless to this ego systems within us. And then as we go through these tools, it sounds to me, because this is the point of all evolution within us. All transformation is to get to a point where we actually see the ego for what it is, the system of beliefs that really is not our true self. And we can come to work with our own self in a different way. That people can get that book. It's available online and on is it on the website?
Anxiety123.com has all the links. I want to make it super easy.
That's the link to use.
Yeah, that's the link to kind of my link tree. But you can go to 1minuteanxietysolution.com and go straight to the website. But anxiety123.com, there's a button that says grab my book, The 1 Minute Anxiety Solution. And that's pretty easy, and it's an all-in-one kind of solution. Great. And you can also, if you want to work with me, I have a button you can click to have a free 30-minute consultation.
Brilliant.
It is, look, anytime you're anxious or triggered, there's something underneath it. And if you just grab the emotional overload first aid kit, and you learn this little process that I started at the beginning of the show, where you can find out why you're triggered in the first place, it can not just change your life, it could change the world. If I had one thing to give to the world, it would be, hey, discover what's really causing your being triggered.
There are different versions of us, I believe, and it's really about what we align to. There's sometimes we align to whatever we feel is real for us. If we feel the world is unsafe, we will align to those versions of us, perpetuate that belief within us. It's really important for us to do this kinds of work, the kinds of work you're doing. It's really powerful to have a different way of being. And this is what I want to introduce as well. My book, I have a bestseller now, Daily Soul Bytes for an Inspired Life. And it's really talking about higher perspectives of self. And how we can come to understand our own perspectives. What are the perspectives that we are holding that are guiding our behaviors and our actions and the way we feel and the outcomes we're having? And this book really takes you through 31 days of understanding yourself a little bit more. And getting a deeper sense of acceptance of self, of true self, for that elevated state of being. So I invite everyone to check out not just Daily Soul Bytes, but also Mahesh's book on anxiety123.com. Again, thank you, Mahesh, for joining me today.
Oh, my pleasure. It sounded like you were going to say one more sentence.
Yes, I was going to say that I invite my audience to subscribe to the channel. We're on YouTube, on Spotify, Amazon, Google, Anchor, and about 5-6 other places. But subscribe and join us every Wednesday for new episodes. And I look forward to seeing you all again soon. Thank you for joining me. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.